Gary Neville got his Homer Simpson smart glasses on for Big Jim's PR tour as it continues. Welcome to the Anglo-Italian pod, as always. My name's Rory, and he's back. Andrea is here, and of course, Adam. But we're going to start with Andrea. Andrea, how are we doing, man?
Very good. Happy to be back. We did a great Serie A one, so looking forward to this one as well.
Ready to go again. Let's do it. Don't let him see behind the curtain, Andrea. This is a completely different time, different day. It's magic how we do this.
Yeah.
It's just a little preview, a little insight.
Absolutely. Adam, how we doing, man?
Yeah, I had to remind myself that definitely wasn't Millhouse interviewing Jim Radcliffe, but yeah, Gary Neville has looks very sophisticated for that particular interview. But yeah, I'm keeping very well. How are things in Milan, more importantly?
All good. A good evening was had by pretty much all for the Arsenal Milano group. It was looking, I'll be honest, it wasn't looking good with about 65 minutes, 70 minutes. It was very loud in that pub full of United fans. It was full of United fans. It was horrendous. But the absolute limbs when that Declan Rice goal went in, honestly, I was hugging strangers. The place absolutely exploded. We kind of realised how many Arsenal fans were there then. So a good evening all in all. And honestly, I was just relieved. Apparently, I should have been fuming and kicking things and the world has ended. But I actually walked out there a fairly contented man of like, well, at least we didn't lose. The only thing that annoyed me is I really wanted that record. You know, where United haven't lost a game when they've led at half time. Yeah. When it came up on the screen, I was like, if we take that record, I really want that record. But it wasn't to be. We'll have to get it next year, I suppose. But yeah, not too bad all in all. But let's start with the stories that caught our eye this week. And of course, we can only start with Big Jim's PR tour. He's back. And for some reason, his publicist has still not said to him, do not get in front of the camera with a microphone. Now, I've not sat and watched the whole interview. I'm planning time to do that tomorrow. But from the clips that have already been released and have kind of gone viral instantly, his comments of we didn't buy these things, we inherited these things, and called out players by name, and then it basically implicitly said that he doesn't want to pay for food. Adam, why does he want to come across like a Bond villain? Is this some kind of fetish or what is his thing?
I don't know. It doesn't really suit the narrative of a Bond villain with the looks. But yeah, with the personality and the traits, he certainly is. Like yourself, I haven't really seen extensively enough to kind of pass comment. I have been kind of just looking at the commentary so far, and it's a bit 50-50, it's fair to say. Some being complimentary of the fact that he's been quite open and, you know, at least expressing a little bit more about the situation, which they haven't, as a Man United fan base, this is ever had under the Glazers. But then you have to kind of look at the kind of mishaps in terms of how he's gone about portraying a lot of maybe his personal views mixed in with the actual facts. Like you say, calling out the fact that, you know, he's hung out a few of the players by calling them too expensive and things that they've inherited, for example.
Yeah.
There was another clip doing the rounds, and I don't know how legit. I have to, like yourself, listen back, but it's almost like the words of he's ploughed in 300 million and it's all gone. So it's a question mark of like what's happened. But I think he also, from the clip that I did see doing the rounds, is he's owns the mistake with giving Erik ten Hag an extension as well as bringing in Dan Ashworth. And he alluded in one of the clips is saying that it was a clash of personalities that wasn't necessarily reflective of him and Dan Ashworth, but of the whole kind of group. So I think there's probably maybe a clash behind the scenes with him and maybe Omar Barada, who was brought in from Man City potentially. So yeah, I'm curious myself. And it's the timing. I think that's the questionable bit. It's the timing after the fan protest at this particular game against Arsenal, given the circumstances. And look, in terms of PR, this is something that would have been planned out. This would have been at least a few weeks in the making, so they would have known about when it was going to come out as well. So for me, yeah, it's a bit odd. And I'm sure they would have had the final say in terms of when it was going to go out. So, i.e., had Man United lost, I don't think that goes out today.
No.
But there you go.
Yeah, Andrea, does it give them any credit in the bank, the fact that he's trying to be, you know, a vocal face when the Glazers haven't? I've never heard their voices. I don't think. Like, does it give them a bit of credit in the bank, even if what is coming out of his mouth isn't particularly like tasteful?
Yeah, I think it can do. I think at the end of the day, like, it's not seen often, so being able to see that as a person who's technically new to the board, you know, fair enough. But I still think what he said and some of the things he came out with, I think even going on to say that Amarin's like doing really well with the team he's got, which I don't think you need to generally say that. You could at least say, like, you know, with what he's had these circumstances, we need to rebuild, but for now he's working with what he has, and we'll look at the future. Like, answer it a bit more futuristically rather than being like, no, he's doing well when they're clearly not. You know, some things like that. And then he was like retracting. It was even a bit where he was like with Sancho being like, yeah, when players like Sancho could leave and stuff like. He's like, oh, was Sancho leaving then? And he's like, oh, I didn't say that. I was saying that, like, other, you know, stuff like that. I think it was a bit. He didn't seem prepared with the answer he had. So I think I'd have to question that, but I don't know if it just adds more fuel to the fire, really. I just think it doesn't. I think, like you guys have said, the timing doesn't seem right. I think it didn't really answer any questions at the end of the day that's going to give some sort of futuristic hope for Man United fans for the future. Like, I don't know what the point was in the end. Just purely probably response to the protest.
Yeah, just did it for doing its sake, really, and say, look, we are doing things, like, to look like you're doing something. I don't know. It seems like PR disaster after PR disaster. But I think, honestly, there's never a quiet day at Manchester United. There's never a single quiet day, and if you're a fan, it must be absolutely exhausting. But there's that, and then Adam, of course, we're staying on Manchester United. Kesey has had his say as well, thrown in his 2 cents. We'll find the jingle somewhere from Through the Keys Hole. But what's he had to say at this point?
It was his overall kind of grasping of the situation at Man United. So this was said pre-match. His discussion was held alongside Andy Gray and Jason McAteer. So obviously the boffins of the whole situation. But in fairness to Jason McAteer, he actually acknowledged the kind of situation that the Man United fan base were having. He was the only critical voice, it's fair to say, in the studio. Richard Keys, for some reason, had this narrative of that, look, this way of financing a football club happened during the Alex Ferguson period, and it got them trophies. They're just entering a period of transition where they went away from Ferguson and not really establishing the fact that Glazers have saddled the club with so much debt through interest, and also taking a large percentage of that money for themselves, whilst also trying to run a business, and not an astute business at the same time, it's fair to say, but also saddling the club with lots of players on high wages. And it just basically comes across as really dim-witted, not really grasping the real facts of when you own a football club. It's very different to just a natural business. I know. So, look, I probably haven't done enough justice, but essentially he just becomes an absolute idiot in front of the cameras, really not grasping the whole situation.
Oh, I will put I reckon Richard Keys loves a billionaire. I reckon he absolutely loves a billionaire. He just wants to be close to them. He thinks they're all geniuses. I guarantee he absolutely loves Musk. I guarantee he loves Musk.
Yeah.
But yeah, always good to hear from him when he publicly embarrasses himself. So yeah, thanks for keeping us up to date with his goings on, our official Keys correspondent there. But this weekend, whether you want that title or not now, Adam, that's
probably
it.
Not.
This weekend there were some big results. Of course, we'll be talking about happenings at Old Trafford. We'll be talking about Forest getting a huge win against City. We'll try not to focus on City and actually talk about the positives of Forest. We'll then go to Spurs 2, Bournemouth 2. Somehow Spurs got back into this. That was a horrendous performance. And then we'll quickly round up the other results, maybe taking a little bit of time on the South Coast with Brighton 2, Fulham 1, and a big result there for the race for Europe. So, listener, we're going to take a very quick break. And when we come back, we'll be talking the Premier League. We'll see you there. And we are back. Welcome back. It's time to discuss all of the Premier League happenings, starting at the City Ground. Nottingham Forest 1, Manchester City 0. Absolutely huge win. Callum Hudson-Odoi smashing it in at the near post. Maybe Ederson could have done a little bit better. But, Adam, that pass from Morgan Gibbs-White, unbelievable. What a performance from the lad.
Yeah, absolutely incredible. This was something, by all accounts, Callum Hudson-Odoi had already discussed with Morgan Gibbs-White in terms of every time he gets on the ball to look over his shoulder to see where he is and see if he can get a ball across to him because he's ready and willing to run onto it. And I think, a lot of credit to the way that they set out against City, all of the players were on board with what they had to play as part of their roles. And, even the attacking players, they served the purpose in terms of the whole overall game plan, 11 men behind the ball on occasions. But when they had to break out on the counter-attacks, they were really impressive. I was so impressed by Ola Aina in particular for his defensive duties, being able to hurrah the ball on occasions. You could see he was, on one occasion, he was physically knackered. He had to take a breather before he composed himself to get himself up and carry on. But it was across the side, Rory. It was such an impressive performance, and I think that was such a needed result in the grand scheme of things. So, yeah, we have to hand it. And I think it also goes to the point of maybe pinpointing that City are a bit confused, despite the fact that we are seeing them maybe come back into it a little bit more. They are still confused in terms of the way that they're still trying to play. And, I think this is a really good point. I'm not going to take credit for it, but the individuals that you've got in that squad, for example, against Nottingham Forest, I think if you're Erling Haaland, you don't know what to anticipate in terms of the through balls or the kind of runs that you should be anticipated to make, which maybe played in the hands of Nottingham Forest in that respect, because actually there were so many individuals that weren't necessarily playing to a system, and it made it easier for Nottingham Forest. But that doesn't detract from what Nottingham Forest did. Fantastic performance and well-deserved, Rory.
No, absolutely. I absolutely love watching Forest. You know exactly what they're going to do. You know what their game plan is, but they execute it so well every single time that it's just like the second they win that possession and you see the whole team just turn the direction that they're facing and you're like, oh, here we go. And you just like whip quick, like straight through. So, Andrea, that kind of front four, but I want to talk about the three really of Hudson-Odoi, Gibbs-White and Elanga. They've been one of the best attacks in the league this year, like without a doubt. And just how much do you enjoy watching them play together and how Espirito Santo has managed to get the most out of all of them? Like Gibbs-White seems to be improving game on game at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I really enjoy all three of them playing. I think they interchange really well. Even when one of them has a quiet game, the other two step up. It's just incredible. And I like the way, like you were saying, they're so structured, but yet they also have the expressiveness in that final third to go on and do their business. And they always have a sense of like playing with no fear and no pressure, even although they shouldn't be pressured, there's still some sort of pressure that they could get top four, and that, and they generally could get it. So they've got to obviously carry on the way they have been. But I've just been really impressed with the way they've approached it these recent games, but overall the whole season, they've been so crucial into the way they play and get those goals. It really does go through those front three, in behind the striker as well. And, at times Wood has a field day, the strikers up top will have field days with those guys behind them. So yeah, credit to Espirito Santo. I think he's just done an amazing job. I just wanted to put out though, when I watch Forest, and I agree with you guys, the structure, everything, it just reminds me that I feel like they're becoming like Atletico Madrid. It might be wild to say right now, but genuinely, the way they're structured, the way they defend, they can hold games, they can, like you said, like Roy, you were saying that how they just turn, and then you just know that they're gonna put pressure on. It just reminds me of that, and I think if they can stick to this type of way of football, it might not be, but they also have the added sense of they actually play really nice football at the same time. So it's like almost an elevated version of Simeone as well. So it's Atletico Madrid. So I just find it fascinating the way they've been approaching it and how it's working in the Premier League so well.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think, but you made the good point, the fact that like it is structured. It is like, 10 men behind the ball, but then they have that license to show a bit of flair and to express themselves when they get to the final third. And there is that kind of like, he lets the chains off them once they get to within 20, 30 yards of the goal. It's like, okay, now you do what you want to do. This side of the line, you graft and you find your position and you stick to your position. But once you get up there, enjoy yourself, have fun. And it really does add that real entertainment to it. And I think, like, Forest fans clearly aren't going to be bloody complaining, but I think they're not here having to watch terrible football, right? They're not just doing like 1-0 and even though this was 1-0, they're not just doing 1-0 and just like, spamming it up the field. There is a real like entertainment value to this football as well. And I think it's great to see Espirito Santo really manage, like, getting his ideas across so well and being backed so well as well, and being like fully supported and getting what he wants from this team. But I think we also have to talk about the defense, because I think Murillo and Milenkovic were unbelievable in this game as well.
Yeah.
They were a large part of why Haaland was largely ineffective, was because they just absolutely locked him up. But we also have to say, like, Adam, the goalkeeper position was a real issue for Forest for a very long time. They had like 5 goalkeepers in a season. I think they had like Greek bloke, they had Matt Turner, they had all sorts of goalkeepers. Dean Henderson for a bit, right? I feel like he was at Forest for a bit.
Yeah, online.
But Matt Sells, unbelievable since he's come in. And again, some huge saves in this game. And again, it just gives them that platform to build on, that they can get a clean sheet against City and know that if they just have that one moment, they'll win the game.
Yeah. And he was shaky when he first started as well at Nottingham Forest. I think he's grown into that. And like you say, I think you're right to allude to people in front of him. We know about the credentials of Milinkovic for what he did at Fiorentina, for example. Murillo has been another one that has been a staple of that squad. Just seems to have got better and better as the season's gone on. But they complement each other as well, because whilst Milinkovic may not have the pace and stamina, he sticks with the play. He gets the tackles in. His reading is very clever. He reads it really well. I think they complement each other. And it reminds me a bit like, and I'm not saying they're the same kind of levels, but, when Vidic and Ferdinand was about, they kind of complement each other by offering something different to each other's games. And I think that's what's so good about this squad, is that you've got not necessarily misfits, but you've got people that have different abilities within that squad. I even allude to the people that are in front of them, in the likes of Elliot Anderson, who was brought in, by the way, as a striker and now being a midfielder in this kind of system. It goes to show you that a lot of these players are playing in different kind of scenarios, different traits. They're using their skill sets. Even Alanga is a player that I wasn't too sure if he would suit Nottingham Forest when they bought him, but he's been phenomenal for them. So a lot of credit. And I think Gibbs White, you're right to allude to. I will be surprised if he's not mentioned in the England squad for Thomas Tuchel's upcoming announcement, because I think he deserves it based on his form. Some incredible performances from that back line as well, Roy.
The scout, like, because that Gibbs White deal was so mad when it went through, and they got laughed at for, like, what was it, 45 million that they spent on him, or it was a big deal, and it was a big, like, what the hell's going on here? But that looks every week like a bigger stroke of genius. And I know, like, with their transfer policy, like, throw enough shit at the wall, some of the transfers will work. But they've been a bit more sensible of late and a bit more targeted. And, like, these players, Murillo has come in and instantly been one of the best defenders in the league, especially this season, has really stepped up. Milenkovic just dominates in the air. He just wins everything in the air. Like, no one gets close to him. So I think their scouting seems, and their, like, kind of their ability to get the targets that they want, or get these targets, has really improved, and we're seeing this level as well. And also Nico Williams is a player that no one ever really talks about, but I really enjoy him as a player. This was a really good performance from him as well. So just all over the pitch, Forest, unbelievable. This was their first win in a while as well. I think it was 3 games that they hadn't won. Yeah, first win in 3 in the league. So a really important boost, especially like to give themselves a bit of a gap ahead of City, who are kind of still trying to get into Europe. Adam, do you think that Forest can start thinking about at least one form of Europe now, probably Champions League?
I think so. I think I'm just looking at their fixtures coming up, and you could arguably say that they've got maybe 4 tough-ish games left to play. Not disputing that the other games aren't hard for them, but I would say by the point that you get into April, you're starting to see it slightly ease off. I would say the upcoming next few could be critical in terms of getting as much points on the board as possible. Look, they're still in the FA Cup as well, so they could still go deep in that as well at the same time. So look, I think this has been a fantastic run so far. Can they just get as close to, I would say, 65 points roughly? If they can aim for at least 10 points in the next sort of 4 to 5 games, then I think you're on course for that Champions League spots. But you're right to allude to, regardless of where they end now, they probably will be in Europe.
Mm-hmm. Unbelievable achievement. And that last game of the season, Chelsea at home, could be absolutely massive to decide what type of Europe they get, which form they get. So absolutely huge. Yeah, just unbelievable. Love seeing Forest do so well, hoping they get this Champions League spot. I'm kind of thinking they can get it done because they kind of had their wobble. And every time they've had a bit of a wobble, they have come back. They've managed to keep their head above water and they're still up there. I think there's still enough quality there for them to get over the line, hopefully. But very quickly, Andrea, Man City, should Guardiola have figured out how to fix this by now, like one player being injured can't excuse some of these results.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, again, when you look at the chances they created, I think there was only 2 notable ones. Haaland went wide. So again, it's not creating enough chances either, which is very un-Man City-like as well. So that's not even a problem in the midfield. That's a problem in the attacking area. So I think all over the pitch, there's big problems. So, and yeah, I think that by this point, with the quality of the manager he is and shown over the years, he should have found something by now. So yeah, I think long way to go to the end of the season as well. So, and they could still miss out on the Champions League, which would be a massive blow. So, yeah, big times ahead.
Yeah, it just looks like they've run out of ideas. Foden, again, just completely anonymous. He's supposed to be the creative spark in this team. He's supposed to be the one that does something, beats a man, just absolutely nothing. Haaland, completely anonymous. It just, even towards the end of the game, I never really felt like, obviously there was the odd break from City, but I never really felt like Forest were going to concede. If anything, I thought Forest might get a second and really see the game off.
Yeah.
So it didn't really ever feel like City were really going to get back into it. Like Adam, it's just a bit dawdling, a bit aimless, right?
At the moment, yeah. As I allude to, it feels at the moment with, Savinho and Doku, you've got different types of attackers. Mamouche seems like the type of player that they needed for the beginning of the season, to be fair. I think he complements Haaland far better and it seems like the long-term replacement for De Bruyne. But then, like you're alluding to, Foden's been lethargic at best. I don't think we've seen the best of him. Jack Grealish seems to be in and out of this squad as well. There doesn't seem to be that right connection going on when they're trying to get into that attacking third at the moment. They don't seem to have a correlation between those sort of players. I think they need to work on that going into the summer. They really need to work out on what they're going to do. What are the players going to add in terms of their kind of approaches as well, because you've got too many players that seem to be doing different things to an extent, and it's just confusing the whole set of players that they've got. They need to work out what is going to happen going forward. But yeah, I think they're just seeing this out for the time being, just to make sure that they are in the Champions League for next season at this rate.
That has to be that has to happen. It just has to happen.
Yeah.
Otherwise it's opening a whole other tin of worms of how do you rebuild this squad, right? But huge win for Forest. Absolutely delighted for them. But we're going to leave that game there for now in the race for top 4, and we're going to head over to Old Trafford. Manchester United 1, Arsenal 1. As I said, once the final whistle went, I genuinely just felt relief. I feel like this was a real game of two halves. Arsenal were so dominant in the first half, it was beyond a joke.
Yeah.
But it's the same old story for Arsenal, just can't create chances, can't create clear-cut chances. Yes, we don't have a fucking striker, what do you expect? But when Fernandes stepped up, the second Trossard gave that free kick away, I don't know about you, Adam, but I went, he's going to score here. From the second Trossard went down, I was like, they're going to go 1-0 up here. It just felt so inevitable.
Yeah, I mean, if there's anyone that's a spark for this Man United side that can give them that quality, it's certainly Fernandes, especially in the form that he's been of late as well. Like, he's the only one that seems inevitable to get a goal for Man United. He's the one that's dragging this team along, and you have to hand it to him. That was a quality strike, regardless of the various different opinions on the wall itself and I think that there's definitely fault at the hands of David Raya for the way he set it up. I don't understand what his thought process was there, whether he felt that the wall would be strong enough to kind of see it out. Regardless, if I'm a goalkeeper, I'm kind of probably more central to that line to ensure that I'm covering all angles. I think he's probably seen some insight to indicate that maybe Fernandes aims for the back post as opposed to maybe that front area, and that's where he gets caught out. But regardless, Raya makes an important save in that second half, in particular against Mazraoui, that keeps Arsenal in that game. And yeah, I think we also have to call out that claw back, when he initially saves from, I think it's Højlund, before he claws out that effort off the line. Fantastic performance from Raya overall, despite that kind of setback in the initial period. But I think obviously that Arsenal being behind wasn't the end of the world. Even when you went 1-0 down, I don't think Arsenal were despondent. They knew they still had to stick to the game plan. And this was not having a recognised striker. So yeah, there's definitely things that you can reflect back and say, should have done better in this scenario. But given the circumstances, I think they gave themselves a really good account and probably edged this game, bar the counterattacks from Man United.
Yeah, I think we'll get on to. I think either team could have easily won this game. I feel like weirdly our worst period was after we scored the goal. We equalised, and then we turned to utter shit. I don't know what happened. We just kept giving the ball away. Like Marino, that tackle from Rice where he had to fish us out of the shit. Like Marino gave the ball away. I feel like after the goal, I was like, fuck, we're doing it again. We just dropped so deep. Everyone panicked. I was like, Christ, what's happening? But Andrea, this was an improved performance from Manchester United. Now, before the game, on the Arsenal Milano group chat, we all give game predictions. And all the Arsenal fans are like, oh, we'll do them 4-0. We'll batter them. I was like, boys, you are too young. You do not remember what it's like to go to Old Trafford. They turn up for these games. And there was a massive improvement from Manchester United, especially in the second half. I think first half, they barely touched the ball. But second half, they really came for it and probably should have got a second.
Yeah, it was another great performance in a big game, which they that's where their best performance have come from. And I think Bruno Fernandes, I mean, I'm a big fan of Roy Keane, but when he was questioning his captaincy and his quality, I think that game showed what he can offer on the pitch. He was so important again. He does have that kind of connection with that team to kind of inspire them to do well. Scores a great free kick and still on it, still trying to, create chances. But I thought they did play well collectively at times. I just think obviously they lack that final. They also lack a striker, really.
Yeah.
Ironically, even though they have two of them. But again, it's just one of those where I think they'll look at it frustrated the way that they didn't hang on for the win. Because I think defensively, I think even De Ligt looked really strong, which is a surprise considering how poor he's been since he joined Man United previously. So yeah, I think there was some positives for sure. But again, it's just, I think the downside of it, of course, is that they didn't get the win. And so I still think from Man United's perspective, despite them playing well, it will still feel like a defeat because they didn't win. And that's what they kind of needed. The good thing, I guess, is that they didn't lose. And regardless of Arsenal missing players, they're playing a really strong team regardless. And they were able to, like players like Nwaneri didn't really have a great game because he was completely stopped. I mean, he's understandable at such a young age, but they were able to stop the kind of big players in the team. So they kind of stuffed that out, but they also tried to create as well. So they had a great performance. It's just, again, it just still seems like Man United like that they were going to concede at some point, despite playing well, and it happened. And I think that's what they've got to kind of stamp out, because I kind of watch their games and I'm just feeling, yeah, they're winning, but I feel like they're going to concede, that they're going to drop off at some point, and it happened again. And like you said, Arsenal could have won it. You never know. Even though they didn't play too well, I think Arsenal had some chances as well. So it's one of those. But overall, yes, positive. But is it enough? I don't think so. Again, because it will go to the next games where they play an easier team and completely shatter and lose 3-0 or something. So that's the only question. But respective of this game, yes, they played well.
I think, and we've talked about it in the past, that they're much more comfortable when they don't have to come out and play the game. Like when they're up against an Ipswich or a Southampton, they have to be the protagonist. They have to step out. This is where they tend to struggle in games. And I was honestly just surprised that at Old Trafford they were so happy to be so passive. But that's how they got the result. That's how they get results. So it's when they have to be the protagonist, that's when they struggle. So I honestly, this whole game and in the build-up to the game, I was like, there's no way they don't get something from this game because they've turned up again. They got a 2-2 draw against Liverpool. They got a result against City, right? They knocked us out of the FA Cup on penalties. Like, they've turned up for these big games. I never really felt confident about it. But I wanted to, when you raised Nwaneri, I think it's a really good point. It's the first time I've seen him, and it's mad to say for a 17-year-old, it's the first time I've seen him have a quiet game and kind of struggle. And I think that says a lot about Dallo. Did a really good job against him. And I think it was a big stage. He is still 17. I feel like he struggled a little bit. But in the current state that our squad's in, once a player like that isn't really producing or being that spark, we've not really got a lot left. I felt really bad for Mourinho. I think he did a really good job up front. But then later on in the game was asked to be box-to-box midfielder and he just had nothing left.
Yeah.
Like, he'd been pressing and leading them press the entire game. And then Arteta was like, okay, now you need to go from box-to-box just for the last 10 minutes. Can you just do that, please, mate? I felt really bad for him. And you can just see the tiredness in this team. And I think there is a loss of focus, which is understandable now that the league is done, right? We're not going to win the fucking league. No matter how many times Sky Sports keep talking about a title race that doesn't exist, we're not going to win the league, right? So I think there has been a loss of focus, but I was just proud that Arsenal did come back into it. They did make sure they didn't lose, and some of the individual performances, like Adam, we have to talk about Declan Rice. I was talking to some Arsenal fans about him, because every time I talk to Arsenal fans, it's always, is he better as a 6? Is he better as an 8? Where do we see his future? And I'm like, no, this just tells us how good a player he is. He is equally good in all of these positions. He does every job. And he basically single-handedly got us this result here, right? That tackle on Højlund at the end. I know Højlund, look, he probably would have spammed it over the stadium anyway. But that is a huge tackle. And then, of course, getting the goal, something that Rice is kind of adding more to his game now. Like, he's one of the most complete midfielders in world football, I think. And when he started really slowly this season, but now we're really seeing him hitting his form again, I think.
Yeah, that was an incredible performance from an individual. You know, you had all aspects being shown in this particular match. That tackle, and you could see how much he was so happy at having to make that tackle in some respects. And I'm surprised that celebration didn't get more attention compared to the one that he actually gave. But in brutal honesty, like, that was an incredible performance, which, you know, I think Man United would have loved to have had a player like him dictating that midfield, you know, being alongside Bruno Fernandes. And I think on his day, he can be absolutely incredible. You know, the fact that he's starting to add goals to his game reminds me of very much a similar criticism that Frank Lampard had at his early parts of his career. But Rice is a lot more all-rounded in terms of his defensive duties. And, you know, he gets himself all over that pitch, as you say. And yeah, we're starting to see the fruits of that kind of consistency that he's offered. And, you know, I feel for him because I feel he wants more from his fellow teammates at times. And you could see that by that tackle. Whilst he was celebrating, I think he's like really having a go at his teammates, you know, to say, you know, I shouldn't be in that position to make that challenge. And he had to get that spot on. What I was going to pose to you was, do you feel Arteta got the substitutions right on the day, given you mentioned about Moreno? I was surprised we didn't see Raheem Sterling come on. And I appreciate Sterling's been quite a frustrating player overall, but do you think you could have at least added a bit more like pressure and, you know, maybe pace up top? You know, I appreciate the sentiments there, but I also wonder with Ben White not being played at right back, whether that could have been better deployed from a balance perspective.
I think, look, to cover off the Sterling thing, no. I don't dislike the bloke. I actually quite like him. I really wanted it to work out at Arsenal, but it just hasn't. It's not working. And I think there would be very, very few Arsenal fans, if any, that would have been like, I'd bring on Sterling now. I was always, when he brought on Kieran Tierney, I thought, yeah, well, at least he's going to put a decent cross in. And he
Sure.
did. Like, I thought at least we're going to get that. With Raheem Sterling, what he tends to do is give away a stupid foul and run down corridors. That's basically what he does.
Yeah.
So, no, I wasn't surprised he didn't come on. I was a bit disappointed, even though I despise that he played for the club. I think the Partey coming off made a huge difference in the midfield as well. We lost a lot of control when he came off, just from a football point of view. Obviously, wish he was nowhere near the team. But I was really happy to see Martinelli come on. I thought he looked promising on the right when he came in. I think Arteta has a tendency of making substitutions really late, and I think he timed these nicely and was like, no, this needs to be done now. We cannot hang around here. So I think it was nice to see him make some early changes. And Lewis Skelly coming on as well, I think made a big difference. Calafiori got caught out a few times. Don't think he had his greatest game. But Ben White is an interesting one because I think there's been a lot of stick around Ødegaard and the performances that he's not really had this season. He's missing the two players that he hooks up with the most, which is White and Saka. So a lot of his relationships on the pitch have gone. I would be intrigued to see Ødegaard play with Ben White now and see if that gets a little bit more out of Ødegaard. Those overlaps on the right, maybe you'll be able to get a few more balls through. Because I think Ødegaard actually played pretty well today. He's getting back to his confidence again. For some reason, a large part of the Arsenal fan base hate him. I've no idea why. But I think he's really got, because, we can't have nice things. I don't know what the reason is. But I feel like he's starting to get those performances, and I think Ben White could bring that out of him. But then it was Yuri and Timber who went around on the right and created this goal, right? So I think there's a selection headache for Arteta there anyway, because you can't really drop Timber. He's been one of our better players this season and more consistent. But yeah, I'm pretty excited to see Ben White again. I think it's going to be in an England shirt and there's going to be a lot of gammons crying about it, and I personally can't wait. But I think, I'm excited to see Ben White come back to the team. But overall, I think a point is probably fair. Andrea, what did you make of Arteta storming out of the press conference? I think a lot was made out of it. I think he's just sick of being asked the same questions over and over again. Like, do you think there was much in it?
No, I don't think there was. I think it's just that he's sick and tired of it. And I think obviously deep down he knows the interviewer is probably stating the obvious, but again, it's just if you can't fix it in that moment, why mention it? Like it's done. If they didn't give it a striker, it's happened. We can't keep going back to it. We need to go back to what they can do to win now. So I think it's just no. It doesn't really reflect on what's happening now in the games. It's more just you have to focus on that rather than what didn't happen. That's what you have to look at, unfortunately. At the same time, it's just like Arteta knows, but again, I think the only thing I'd say is that it made him look like he was agitated. In terms of like
he
the
is.
result, I know he is, but like you want to kind of show that you're not, You could kind of see though that it's just he's not gonna take these questions lightly every time.
No. He's been absolutely hung out to dry by the ownership. Like, it's insane. They've just like absolutely shafted him. So I'm not surprised he's sick of the
He
questions.
needs to have a word with Wenger.
Well,
get some advice from Wenger because he's done that for years. So
how do I get even more out of these players, please? Like, you got to tell me. I felt kind of obviously so many storms in teacups after this game, and of course now footballing community. We promise that Arsenal will never celebrate another goal until we win the Premier League. Will people then be happy? Right? We're just not allowed to have anything nice? I don't know what is happening. Every time Arsenal score a goal, it's like, fucking won the Champions League over it. It's just so fucking boring. But let's leave that game there before I really go on. And let's go to a game I was really laughing at until I saw the final scoreline. Tottenham 2, AFC Bournemouth 2. Somehow, Adam, Spurs got a point out of this. I did see quite a funny post-match from the Spurs channel of one of their pundits being like, this could be a boost going into Thursday that we've managed to get this result. It's like, mate, did you watch the performance?
I know.
This isn't a boost for anything. I couldn't believe how bad Spurs were.
No, I think if anyone's going to be gutted, it'll be Bournemouth, because the way that they potentially let Spurs back into the match, in particular, maybe that penalty incident, maybe they should have defended that a lot better. But yeah, in terms of Spurs, it was terrible. It was everything. I think you put in your notes was what they should have been striving for, but essentially we're seeing Areola being able to dictate with his squad. And bear in mind, Bournemouth have had quite the injury crisis themselves, but still managed to get through these moments, with players that are playing for the badge and ultimately trying harder. That is the difference between the two, is that you've got players that are trying harder for that system. I feel for them in some respects, in terms of Spurs, but ultimately I think their fan base have given up. They don't even look at Thursday as being an opportunity to get back into the tie, because they see this performance and actually I don't see it happening. There's a sense of realism that they want this season to end now. They cannot be bothered with seeing out the rest of the season, and you can see it by the amount of people that are season ticket holders that no longer want to attend these matches now. They've had it, and it's not necessarily aimed at Ange, it is aimed at the board at this point. It is, we've talked about in depth, and I don't want to dwell on it too much, but it's definitely a combination of different things that are playing into how this season's panned out. But ultimately, this performance was dreadful. But a lot of credit goes to Bournemouth, because the way they kind of took it to Tottenham, in particular, even the goals that were disallowed in this particular match, they tore Spurs apart. They really did, with their quick fluidity in terms of their style. One individual that I want to call out is Marcus Tavernier, a player that I didn't think, had that kind of ability to, strive forward. But there was one particular move. It was that Clivert goal that got dismissed. Obviously, it was his defensive move first that breaks up the play. Then he strives forward, and you're thinking, right, he's going to get knackered. He's going to pass this on to someone else. But he still moves up the wing. Does a 1-2 with Semenyo. And gets that up the wing, and it was beautiful. If only that was given as a goal. If only that was given as a goal, because that's what it deserved, in fairness. So, really gutted, because that would have added me some points on my fantasy. But regardless, yeah, what an effort from Bournemouth.
Yeah, I just feel like they do what Spurs do, but better. Like their high press was relentless, unbelievable. And then they dropped back in numbers so quickly when Spurs did break. Like, they're trying to play what seems to me as a fairly similar style of football, but just do it to a much higher level. And I feel like Areola is just coaching much better performances. I wanted to talk about, with Spurs, Romero, Andrea, his return to the team. He almost gave away 3 goals in 20 minutes. And this is what, obviously Spurs have had a load of injuries, but the players they're missing, when they come back, you remember that they're players that get better the longer they're injured. If you know what I mean? Because everyone's like, oh God, when this guy comes back, everything will be fine. Then they get back and you're like, oh, actually, no, they're not that great, are they? Romero had an absolute stinker, and had to get taken off of Van de Ven, who, again, they're kind of rushing back. So they're not getting performances from anyone at this point.
Yeah, definitely. I've never understood this Romero, because they always find him as quality, but he's always got a mistake in him. He's always
fucking liability.
Yeah. I don't understand. He has qualities, but the negatives outweigh the positives, I guess. But yeah, again, and Van de Ven coming on, I think, gave some sort of lift, because there's probably statistics on when Van de Ven plays, they're a lot better, and I presume there are. But again, it's just he's not ready, he's not fit, and again, it's just over reliance on just this guy coming back will be okay, this one coming back. It's just never the case. They've got an 11 there that they've got to work with, and a lot of players not stepping up. Even players like Porro, Bentancur looks just completely out of it now, dreadful. I mean, and you spent money on players like Johnson, who's I don't, what was it, 50 million, 45 million for him?
Yeah.
And even Solanke, I think that's what Bournemouth will laugh a lot with that as well. He's he's an alright player, he's a good player, but for that money and the output is not worth it. And again, we've alluded to previously, the transfer strategy of the club has let them down as well. But essentially, they've got a lot of players that aren't performing. Even Son, yes, there's question marks why he should have started, but again, even he looks like he's starting to be at the final stretch of his career as well. Yeah. So there's a lot of transition needed. But again, the players that, I think you're exactly right, the players they have and the players that come back, it doesn't seem to make any difference anyway. So it's what are you waiting for? It's just some wonder kid that comes from the youth team to come on and do something. That's the only way I see potentially. But yeah, it's just the same story.
Yeah, I think Solanke's a really good point because obviously he's had his injury issues, but even then he's still not, when he has played, he's not really got the goal output that you would hope. And then on the other side, Adam, you've got Evan Nielsen, who comes straight back from injury with a beautifully taken goal.
Yeah.
He is such a beautiful striker to watch and just so clinical. Like, it feels like they've really upgraded that position instantly. And again, if he can remain fit, they've got a real chance at chasing Europe as well.
Yeah, 100%. And I think he cost 25 million less than what they got for Solanke. So essentially, they made money there already. He was already a class player. We knew from his performances for Porto in those Champions League matches, we knew what kind of caliber of player he was. Obviously, it took a little bit of time to adjust to the Premier League, but actually he's adapted quite quickly in the grand scheme of things. And I think it's down to the freedom that he has. You know, he's got attacking players behind him. I think for me, what you have to call out is players like Kluivert, who actually have excelled this season. I didn't see that kind of performance from him this season. Semenyo has been another one that's been quite strong, you know, offering attacking outlets and being sometimes that focal point for them in terms of attacks. As I've already alluded to, Tavernier has been another one that's been really critical for them. I think they'll be disappointed, though, from a Bournemouth point of view anyway, for this game was Asperger's performance in goal. In particular, obviously, look, Sarr's goal was somewhat of a wonder goal, wonder hit, should we say.
Did he mean it?
I think he meant it. I think he meant it.
When I first saw it, I was like, that's a cross in it. But I don't know. Maybe that's just my Arsenal glasses
I also think the positioning of the goalkeeper should be a bit better for that, anticipating maybe it. But yeah, I think, that's probably let them down overall. But Kirkes is another one that I really like, that left back position. I mean, forgetting about that assist, just generally, he's owned that left back position. And if he doesn't somehow make that team of the year, I'll be very surprised.
That's unbelievable this season. That cross was just unbelievable. I couldn't believe it when it went in.
It's incredible.
And I was like, oh, if Liverpool get him, it's game over. They're already getting linked with him, and I think him in that Liverpool team would just absolutely, they'd be unbelievable. But what a performance he's putting in. And not only that, it's like he's a proper warrior. Like, he's technically brilliant. His recovery pace is fantastic. Even before that cross, which is unbelievable, it's the run that he makes to intercept the ball and then start the move. Like, he's doing it all. Like, and then he's standing up against Mateus Cunha, not giving a shit, if you know what I mean. Like, the guy's an absolute warrior. Like, I love the bloke. So I think really great to see him doing so well. I think he should be in team of the season. He has to get in team of the season, really.
Yeah, but
cool. That cross, and it was just so pinpoint, and the finish from Tavernier was just beautiful. But all he had to do was just get contact, and that was going in. But it was a hell of a finish. Like, just what a cross, unbelievable. Great performances from him. And yeah, Kluivert again, unbelievable. And we have to just say Huijsen. Every time I watch him, I'm like, friggin' hell, Juve are the stupidest bastards in the world. How the frig did you let him go? He's just head and shoulders above everyone. Unbelievable. What a guy. But yeah, ultimately, a point for everyone, although I think Spurs still come out somehow looking like they lost despite the comeback. Let's very quickly go to the next big game, I suppose, in the race for Europe. Brighton 2, Fulham 1. Again, Fulham struggle in a game that maybe they should be looking to getting points from. But Brighton leave it very, very, very late. Andrea, João Pedro in the 98th minute with a penalty. How big is this win for Brighton? This is 6 wins in a row for them now. They're on a huge run.
Yeah, it's massive. And again, with the 6 wins in a row, it's the momentum that they've got to try and keep building. But again, for their sakes, the European thing will be so important in terms of financial boost and trying to build on this team because they've got a good core to build around. So yeah, it's interesting to see how they'll carry on. But certainly for now, they look like they can really push for that. Certainly even the Europa League spots as well. So interesting to see. But obviously still a long way to go. But João Pedro again, I feel like on his day, he's just very cool, calm, collected. Pressure penalty. I think there's no doubt when he scores that as well. He's a very top striker in this league. So yeah, great win, and yeah, 6 in a row, which is incredible.
Unbelievable for them. Adam, for Fulham and Marco Silva, is there an issue with how he coaches big games versus the not big games? I feel like Fulham drop unnecessary points quite a lot, but do turn up and bloody the noses of big teams.
I think they are missing the player that was obviously Palhinha's sort of replacement.
Yeah.
Sorry, Sasa Lukic is the one that's been deployed in that position, and he's been playing superbly in that role. But they don't have anyone that naturally fits into that when Sasa Lukic has to be dropped or is out of the team. So, unfortunately, I feel that's the difference on their day. Actually, he's the one that kind of helps them tick over and provide that impetus, especially from a spark perspective, because. Like you got Sander Berger, he's a good player, but maybe not to the same caliber as what we expect. And I think that's all it is, literally. Fulham are a few players away from maybe being that kind of threat into the European places. And potentially might see FA Cup as the opportunity. But, you know, we've been purring about Fulham on occasions this season. They've really displayed some really good performances across the season. It's just consistency with them. I feel that's all it is consistency within this group of players, because on their day, we know that they're a capable side, and I think they're far more advanced than they were a few seasons ago. So I think that's probably the thing to call out. But quickly on Brighton, I think the one player to call out was Ayari, as he's someone that's been touted by a few of the bigger clubs already, potentially for a big move away from Brighton already. I don't want to kind of say that to Brighton fans, but it seems to be an ongoing theme with them. And they were probably unlucky not to have scored another. Matoma's goal was disallowed for being offside as well. So potentially before that it gets to the 2-1 stage, could have been even greater. But yeah, fantastic season from Brighton. All I was going to say, though, looking at their fixture list, it's not straightforward because they've got Man City next away, and that's a game they traditionally don't do very well at. They've got a few fixtures like that. They've still got to play Liverpool, for example. And in a few weeks' time, they've got Crystal Palace, who is another side that are doing so well. I was looking at it. I think in the last 15 games, they've won 10. So they've been on a phenomenal bit of form, if you include the result on Saturday. And yeah, that obviously is a feisty affair between the two of them. So it'd be interesting because, you know, Crystal Palace aren't a million miles off Brighton. So, you know, with the results that I'm saying, you know, if they lose to Man City, they've got the FA Cup as well. Crystal Palace could gain some momentum and some, you know, positions in that respect. So going into that game, that could be an interesting affair.
I like that shout. Yeah, I do also have to say another assist for Iwobi. I was looking today. He's third in the league in the number of chances created this season.
Oh, wow.
Absolutely unbelievable season from Alex Iwobi. Absolutely killing it. Another assist from him. Always got to show him love. Always got to show him love. But let's very quickly go through the other results. As Adam alluded to, another win for Palace as Sarr scores in the 82nd minute to get a 1-0 win over Ipswich. Liverpool, when Southampton went 1-0 up, my face didn't even react. I was just like, I'm beyond this now. What is the bloody point? Liverpool win 3-1. Of course, they get a penalty. 2 penalties, in fact, of course. Yeah. And Nunes with the equalising goal. But he didn't celebrate, so they win, right? Good. Aston Villa beat Brentford 1-0. Ollie Watkins, again, haunting his old club. Those fans proper give him shit every time he comes back. Yeah. He did give them the win there with the 1 goal, and Wolves drew 1-1 with Everton. Menezzi getting the goal, and Chelsea beat Leicester 1-0. Cole Palmer had a penalty save before Cucurella got the winner in what was a less than convincing performance for Chelsea. Things still not looking great for Maresca. But Andrea, is it just important that Chelsea, you have to beat Leicester, right?
Yeah, and I think now it takes them to 4th as well, so it was crucial. But yeah, still not convincing. I still worry about the whole future of the games and also the manager in general. But yeah, the main thing is they won the game. But against a lesser team like that, to only win like that, I still think it's so concerning.
Yeah, we scored 2 and we didn't have a striker. You've got like 20 of them. But, yeah. And in tonight's game, West Ham lost 1-0 to Newcastle. Of course they did. Bruno Guimaraes with the goal to deliver the win there for Newcastle. Big win for Newcastle, that actually, as well. Important for them to continue to get points ahead of the big final. But guys, that is all of the Premier League action this weekend. Oh, it was enjoyable. We're going to take a very quick break, and when we come back, we're going to discuss all of the European action right here. We'll see you there. And we are back. Welcome back. It's time to discuss all of the European action this week. Arsenal will be hosting PSV with that lovely 7-1 lead. The Arsenal board now regretting the fact that Champions League tickets are horrendously expensive and nobody wants to go because it's a dead rubber. Don't expect to see a full stadium here. But it'll be interesting to see who gets a run out. Liverpool are hosting PSG. I cannot believe they won that game in Paris. Within 2 seconds, it went from an utter shit show to tactical genius. I had to turn the TV off because it was making me too angry. But genuinely, PSG looked terrifying. I think they could really cause Liverpool a few problems here because they were very lucky to get through that one. Thoughts on Liverpool PSG, Andrea? Do you think Liverpool will get it done just because, Anfield?
Yeah, they'll get it done. It's Anfield.
It's going to be that, isn't it?
It's game over.
Yeah.
It's game over for PSG.
I couldn't believe when we played PSG, they looked so average. And Adam, Kvaratskhelia has just transformed that entire team.
He's been absolutely incredible, the form that he's been displaying for PSG. But in that particular match, as he alluded to, he was frightening, absolutely frightening. He really did cause Liverpool a lot to worry about and sweat about. I'm thinking that they actually do take the game to Liverpool, and I think it might go into extra time, personally. I think they might get a goal in the normal kind of 90 minutes, and we will see if they can get a winner or potentially take the game a little bit further. So I don't think it'll be straightforward for Liverpool, personally. Although we're talking about the Anfield effects, and don't get me wrong, there is definitely that, but I think PSG have got nothing to lose. They have to go for it. I don't think they'll be conservative. I think they will probe in much the same manner and apply a lot for Arne Slot to think about. I think Arne Slot actually learned a lot from that kind of encounter and realised that his tactics weren't great on the day. So I think we will see a different game, and I think we might even see a very defensive Liverpool team that might only exploit PSG on the counter. So I think they will try and dominate that midfield, but PSG will go for it.
Yeah, I absolutely love that Doué as well. What a player he is. Oh my God. Really enjoy watching him. And Barcola again. I've only really watched them at the Emirates this year and they were so disappointing. I was bloody hell, is this it? And then watching them against Liverpool, I was like, Christ, this is really a different team.
Really
I don't
exciting.
think we do him 2-0 again, I'll be honest. In the Europa League, we have Tottenham hosting AZ Alkmaar. Only a 1-goal deficit, but zero belief. It will be interesting to see if they can get a result there. I do kind of still fancy Spurs to get through somehow. And then United will be hosting Real Sociedad. That's going to be an interesting one. I think they did well to get a draw away. I think they should be able to squeeze through there. We will see how that goes. And in the Conference League, Chelsea only won 2-1 in Copenhagen, but at home, Andrea, they should be able to get the job done, right?
Yeah, it'll be comfortable. I think they were comfortable away as well. I think it'll be comfortable.
Nice. All the English teams improving that coefficient. That's what we're hoping for. Keep it coming. But that is all the European action. I'm actually looking forward to a relatively stress-free Arsenal game, or it will be the worst night of my life. It's one of the two. But Adam, take us through the next Premier League fixtures.
Yeah, round of 29 games start on Saturday at 3 p.m. So no early kickoffs on Saturday. You'll be pleased with that. Starting off with Everton at home to West Ham, followed by Ipswich Town at home to Nottingham Forest, Man City at home to Brighton and Hove Albion, and Southampton at home to Wolverhampton Wanderers. Before at 5:30 p.m. we've got Bournemouth at home to Brentford. Then we move into Sunday's fixtures. Starting at 1:30, we've got Arsenal at home to Chelsea. At the same time, we've also got Fulham at home to Tottenham. And we also have thereafter, it's the EFL Cup final, where we've also got at 4:30 p.m. Liverpool at home to Newcastle. Before at 7 p.m. on Sunday, we also see the delights of Leicester City hosting Man United. So that is your round of 29 games. All I would say is
It's going to be atrocious.
Sunday is a football day. Sunday is a football day because you've got Rangers and Celtic. You've got the Sheffield Derby. You've got all of those Premier League fixtures. You've got, obviously, in Serie A, which we cover on our Serie A podcast, we've got Atalanta versus Inter. So, yeah, it is
and I
quite
think there's
the day.
Atleti Barca on the Sunday as well.
Correct.
Yeah.
Atleti Real, isn't it? I think, maybe. I can't remember. But yeah, there's lots of football talking points.
Insert David Mitchell meme here. The football never stops.
All
right?
of the football.
But yeah, all the time, everywhere. So Great weekend ahead, guys. I cannot wait. And of course, the England squad is about to be announced. Before I throw in the least surprising names in the hat for who I think are going to be the outside bets for the squad, Andrea, any players you're expecting to be a surprise inclusion?
The only one I would say, which I'm a big fan of, is Ian Delap at Ipswich. If there's a chance for him to get into the squad, I think it would be good. There are obviously some not obvious ones, but most likely ones like Morgan Rogers. He definitely has to be in there. I think he's been incredible. And obviously, there's a few others. I'll let Rory say the other ones that I can't say. Oh no, I should take it because in the Serie A.
You should take it. You can take one of them. You can take one of them. Yeah.
So, all right, I'll take Nwaneri.
Nice.
I find it hard to pronounce his name. But
everyone does. Don't worry, everyone does.
But he's obviously, because Saka's out, seems like he's the natural replacement for Saka. So yeah, those are my
fingers
guys.
crossed. I'm excited to see him in there. Adam, any names you want to throw into the hat?
I wouldn't say this is necessarily a shock name, should we say, but Adam Wharton potentially coming from Crystal Palace. I think that would be quite a suitable one. I'll be intrigued to see. Obviously, I alluded to Morgan Gibbs-White. I think he should be in that squad. One name that I think might be from a Chelsea point of view, because of his form, Callum Hudson-Odoi as well. I think his form has definitely given him a shot. But yeah, they're the obvious ones apart from the ones you're going to announce right now.
Well, I think we've got the official piss boilers because nobody likes him. At left back, we've got Miles Lewis-Skelly, who everybody hates already for some reason. I'm really excited to see if he gets called up, especially with Lewis Hall picking up an injury, a pretty bad injury by the looks of it as well. I think he needs to be called up for that massive hole in the England squad in terms of left back. And of course, Ben White. If he gets called back, the scenes are just going to be unbelievable. Cut to that man booing his own telly. Do you remember that bald man booing the telly? I want to see him doing it again. I think it's going to be fantastic to see him back in the squad because he's England's best right back, so he should be in the squad. But yeah, I'm really excited to see how people rationally react to that and then blame it on Tommy Tuchel being German and him not caring or something like that. So yeah, it's going to be a really fun international break, guys. They always are, right? They always are with our newspapers. But listener, thank you as always for joining us. It means the world to us that you choose to spend your time with us. Go check out the Serie A episode. There's actually a title race over there. Genuine title race. It's getting really tense. You should go and check it out. It's really interesting. If you are listening on Apple Pods, please do go give us a review and a rating. I know the majority of you are doing it, so please just open your phone now. Don't scroll on Twitter. Just give us a review. That's great. Thank you. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the like and subscribe button down here. That means a lot to us. And guys, anything to say before I send the listener home?
Enjoy the football.
Always. Guys, we will see you next time. See you later.
Take care.
Bye.